Welcome back to Project Hardway. This is my 1979 Chevy Camaro. That is a 402 cubic inch big block Chevy, and it sends its power through a 4-speed transmission. In today's video, we're going to rebuild that Holley carburetor and get it ready to go back on top of that engine after a fresh rebuild. While you're here, please take a look at the other videos on the channel for the buildup of that engine, and press the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you get notified when I drop more videos with future content on this car and many other projects I've got around the shop. Let's get into rebuilding that carburetor. All right, we're gonna get down and dirty, nitty gritty. Gonna go through this Holley carburetor and rebuild it, clean it all up, get it ready to go back on Virginia. So this is a Holley carburetor. It is a double pumper. You know that because it's got two fuel lines. It's got an accelerator pump over here, and it's got another one over here. This unit also has manual choke. It's got 4-corner idle air adjustment screws. You can also tell it's a Holley based on, the way it looks. And how do you tell it apart from another carburetor? Well, that's an Edelbrock. That's a Holley. Edelbrock, Holley. Edelbrock, Holley. Now when I got Virginia, it had that 600 CFM Edelbrock carburetor on it, which in my opinion is not enough for that engine. So I found this on Facebook Marketplace. I paid, I think, $275 for it, which is a steal on a Holley carburetor, especially given the fact that I put this thing on the car and it fired right off, no issue. So why am I going to rebuild it? Well, I want to make sure first I've got the tune right on that engine, because the issue that it had in the beginning was that the tune was off with that carburetor. It was dumping too much fuel into the engine and it was getting to the oil, wearing out the bearings. Second, I want to know what's inside it. I want to know what jets are in it. I want to know what power valves in it, and I want to get everything set up exactly the way it should be so that I have zero issues out of this carburetor when I go to start driving the car. First thing I'm gonna do is take all the stuff off. Space a ring for that big old air cleaner there. Well, that wasn't on there very well at all, was it? A couple 11/16 nuts hold this on. Yep, it's got another one of those things there. I don't have a wrench that big, so I'm gonna use my buttery croissant wrench. There we go. There we go. Now, oh wow, that one wasn't even tight. Ah, see? When you don't know, you need to know. Look at that. I'm not putting any effort into loosening this float bowl. That was on the car, running. Crack that bad boy off there. Okay, no. Hey, there we go. I guess it didn't matter how loose the bolts were because this damn thing wasn't going anywhere. Finally, holy cow. Now, I'm no expert, and I don't claim to be, but I believe they call this a distribution block. It's got your jets in there. It's got a little power valve. Yeah, this is where stuff happens. All right, it just, it's just things go on in there. There we go. Now, while we're right here where we're at, I'm going to indulge my curiosity and see what jets are in the primary here. If I can get a proper size screwdriver. Come on. Now these jets, when you're on the throttle, they are metering how much fuel is flowing into the engine. And of course, a bigger jet is going to allow more fuel. A smaller jet is going to allow less fuel. And essentially all it is a fitting with a hole in it. So we're on here, it should have a number. Let's see if we can pick that up. These are 71s. So I don't know what happened with the GoPro footage, but one of the clips got cut short, so we missed out on taking a couple of things off the main body of the carburetor. The first was the squirters for the front and the rear. You just pop those Phillips screws out. There's a small conical check valve inside there that when you're not on the throttle, it'll kind of keep fuel from just flowing out of them constantly. Also, while you've got it apart, you want to clean up all the orifices related to that and everything in the back here for the air horns as well. We also missed taking off the throttle valve, or the body of it, where the butterflies are at with the carburetor upside down. It's just 4 screws on the bottom, and that is, of course, after you take loose the choke linkage assembly. Make sure not to lose any of those small little clips and springs associated with that. I cannot for the life of me get this thing off here. I think it's just another matter of a seized gasket. See what we can come up with. Oh, there we go. Jeez. Once you get inside there, that's the power valve. There we go. It's about the cleanest gasket removal I've had so far. I can't believe I'm about to do this. I can't believe I'm about to do it again. There we go. So these power valves, just like the jets and the squirters, have got different sizes. This one says 6.5. This one has some garbage on it. Now that that is all disassembled, that is essentially ready for cleaning, you know? There we go. Okay, so you could hose all this stuff down with carburetor cleaner, or you get a big can of what they call Chem Dip. Essentially, it's a big ass can of carburetor cleaner. Inside this big ass can of carburetor cleaner is a little strainer basket. And you can put all your stuff in there and just let it soak. Now I'll turn my attention to these float bowls, pull these accelerator pumps off. These accelerator pumps have a diaphragm in them. After sitting for so long with bad gas, or new gas and bad gas in them, it will kind of eat them up. Oh yeah, that accelerator pump looks brand new. So these floats were dependent on where you set them. Inside here is an adjustable needle spring seat. As the fuel level rises in the float bowl, float goes up, and then this will activate a spring and seat in here that will close off the flow of the fuel into the carburetor. These floats have to be adjusted and set correctly to allow the right amount of fuel into the carburetor. Newer carburetors will have a sight glass. Older ones will have this screw on them. Essentially, with it on the car, if you were tuning that way, you could take this screw out, put some rags down so you don't get fuel all over the place, and you would adjust the float until the gas just started to come out of there. So I've got everything cleaned up with the carburetor cleaner, sprayed off as much gunk as I could. One thing I've been toying around with the idea of is trying to polish this carburetor with my Dremel. Now granted, when these things are polished by the manufacturer, they've got some type of like tumble deal with beads and stuff like that. It gets everything nice and shiny. But you can still make a carburetor look halfway decent with just a Dremel. Now I've been playing around with this side of it, and it's far from perfect. You can see little swirl marks and stuff from my polishing pads on the Dremel, but it looks a lot better. And I think that once everything would be assembled on it, you would hardly notice that stuff, and it would just look shiny. It's good from afar. But absolute legend. My GoPro died. Anyway, I think that I can massage this a little bit more, and I think on some other parts where the things are a little bit flatter, I can really bring this thing around and make it look good. So we'll throw that on the time lapse real quick. Well, for you it'll be real quick. For me, I'll be here forever. The only downside of this is that, one, I destroyed this wire brush, and there are bits of wire in me and everything else around me, and I'm going to absolutely have to clean the piss out of this thing when I'm done, for the amount of fabric and other things that are going around. So all the cleaning work I just did, well, I'll do it again. All right, my half-ass polish job on the carburetor is done. I'm omitting that time lapse because it's long, boring, and not to the point. So here is my Holley trick kit. Trick It rebuild kit. Pop this open, see what we got. I'm not 100% sure what to expect in this kit. I do know that oftentimes they will come with more than just what you need. Different parts, different models, different applications. So it's always good to take a look at what's in there and keep your old stuff around on the side in case, like this right here, 2 different gaskets. You want to make sure that you've got the right one on there. All the little seals and O-rings, they got, I mean, it's got everything in here. I mean, these little washers that go on the screws for the float bowl, another gasket, 3 different power valves. Look at that. So the 6.5 is what's in my carburetor, got 2 of them. And then I got a 10.5. And then of course you've got a brand new carburetor base gasket, new gaskets for the distribution blocks, and then your float bowl gaskets. Take a look at these gaskets. Make sure that I'm not covering up anything. See, look, I almost put that in there backwards. And you see that? There's holes, all right? And they're not, it's not symmetrical. Power valve goes, you know, backside of the distribution block. No need to put all the stank on it, just a little gasket on the dowel, block on the dowel, jets. Don't mix them up. 71s go for the primaries. Think, think. Now pay attention when you put your float bowls back on. They've got these things that are symmetrical, but in there, there's nothing, there's no hole. In there is. Fuel line comes in on the passenger side of the car. That needs to be as it should be. Slip the new bowl gasket on there. With the bowl upside down, you want to set the float parallel with the top of the float bowl. No matter where I set that needle and seat, the bowl was still hitting the top of this, so I had to bend the bracket on it a little bit. Now when I adjust the needle and seat, it makes adjustments on the float bowl level. New gasket for the adjuster nut. New gasket for the hold down screw. I hope that's the right one. Now that bowl is ready to have a gasket slapped on it. Throw it back on there. Yeah, all right. Now, one of these was that for the, you know what? It doesn't matter, they're all the same. The kit does not include new springs for the accelerator pumps. So, good thing I didn't just throw everything in the trash. Just a little cinch on that accelerator pump housing. No need to go all crazy like my dad putting an oil filter on. And I'm ready to rinse, wash, and repeat. Throw the secondary bowl together. Those of you with a keen eye will notice that I did not put in one of those little plastic things that attaches to the distribution block. I did take the bowl back off, put that back on like it should be. So, got the bowls on, accelerator pumps. Now let's talk about the throttle body. So there are many circuits in here that air and fuel and things like that flow through. If you have a hot rod that just runs so rich at idle that it burns your eyes, black smoke, you can't run it in the garage even with the door open, it's because you're getting too much fuel at idle. And guys will try to mess with these idle air mixture screws all day long. They'll adjust timing, do stuff like that. What it comes down to, on the bottom of the throttle body here, and you may or may not be able to see it, I'll crack it open. There's a slot in each one of these. Those things create the airflow, the Venturi effect that allows a bit of fuel to go into the engine at idle. A lot of times guys will have problems with their cars running, so they'll start adjusting the idle screw here. Well, when you adjust that idle screw, it opens up the throttle blades more and more, and if too much of that slot is exposed, it's going to allow too much fuel into the engine at idle. So what everybody says to do is, and again, I don't know if you can see it, you see just a little trickle of light there. So you want to set the blades on your throttle body, or on your throttle, your butterflies. Set your butterflies to where like 0.03 of an inch to 0.04 of an inch is exposed on those. Same for the secondary. Now you can do the primaries with the idle adjustment screw. The secondaries, there's a screw down here in the bottom of the plate. So it's got to be done with the carburetor off because you're not getting a screw under that when the carburetor is on the engine. If for whatever reason, through ignition timing and idle air mixture adjustment, you cannot get your engine to idle correctly. Again, if you want the idle mixture to be right and not be pig rich at idle, burning everybody up, don't adjust this. Usually with a bigger cam, you're gonna need a little bit more air. If you can't get it right, guys will actually drill holes in these butterflies, starting with a very small amount, like a 3/32. You can put one in the primaries. If that's not enough, put one in the secondaries, and so on and so forth, stepping up a little bit, just a little bit at a time, so that the engine can get more air into it past the butterflies without uncovering those transfer slots too much. That being said, that's what we're going to try to do. Hopefully I don't have to drill any holes in my carburetor, but if I have to, I friggin' will. Flip this bad girl over, get my carburetor gasket. Got my old one here. I just want to line it up. So what I want to do is I'm going to put this gasket over this gasket, and I'm going to confirm that all the holes are the same and lined up and nothing's closed off. That's my gasket. We'll go ahead and, because it's got a couple of dowels on there, I'm going to go ahead and put the gasket on there, so I don't have to worry about shifting it around. Come on. There we go. That's in place. Throttle body assembly is now back on the main body of the carburetor. Now I've just got to throw my squirters back in, put back in the fuel line fittings. Seats have got some brass filters in them, and you can clean these, but these actually look like they're in really good shape. Couple of pieces of the choke linkage to throw on there, and then I'll be damned, she's ready to go back in the car. So here we are. I've got choke linkage back on the carburetor. I've got the fuel filter and fittings back on it. This thing is complete. It's ready to go on. These Holley kits are great. They come with everything you would need for these things, and then some, because the kits are kind of laid out for different model carburetors. You will have some extra parts. They even come with a little vacuum cap to put on here, because nobody uses that. It's hiding. It's out of the way. It's hard to get to. And of course, new carburetor base gasket. I did, after some wrestling, get the choke set back up on it. Say what you want to, the choke was zip tied open when I got the carburetor, but I like to mess with my cars whenever I feel like. So if I go outside and it's 25 degrees, I'd like for my car to start without a can of starter fluid. Ready to roll. That's going to do it for today's video, guys. Next video, we're going to put that carburetor back on the engine and go through the absolute nightmare of getting that thing tuned and running right. And I even break out a tool that most guys wouldn't put anywhere near their carburetor. Remember, guys, sometimes you got to do things the hard way.